In today's video, we're going to be replacing the slave cylinder and a braided steel clutch line to delete the big giant mess of a clutch line that Mazda gives you stock. So why would you want to replace a slave cylinder? That's a dumb question, and if you need to replace a slave cylinder, you better fucking do it. Because one of the symptoms is that, you know, your clutch, it'll feel really light, but in a bad way. You want it to be some resistance when you push the clutch in. Otherwise, it's even with no resistance, it's pretty hard to find the bite point because you can go too far very easily. And also, the clutch being so light, it's not fully engaging the clutch. So what will happen sometimes is that you'll go second, and notorious for MX5s, you'll go from second to fifth. Now you're probably thinking, no, that's a motor mount problem, that's a diff mount problem. But you gotta think, if the gauge is even slightly disengaged while you're changing gears, the engine is still like stuck in that motion a little bit because it's still engaging a little bit, it's still catching. So you gotta think the engine's torque like this when you're accelerating. I mean, when you get your foot off the throttle, the engine moves back upright. But since your clutch is not allowing the engine to disengage from the drive line, instead of your engine doing this, straightening back up, it's on a slight angle. It never reaches neutral, like the proper neutral position. And also, probably the worst symptom of all is that you'll go to change a gear really fast, say first, second, and then you'll go to change to third real quick. This literally happened to me. Second, you got your foot all the way down and you just quickly just go into third as fast as you can. If your slave cylinder is failing, or any part of your clutch system for that matter, this is any part of your clutch hydraulic system is fucking up, this will happen. With anything I'm saying right now and in the next part of this video, it will actually go to second, grind, and you'll freak out and quickly go into neutral, pull the clutch out, put the clutch back in, and go back into third again. But really, it wasn't even your fault. It was the fault was that the clutch wasn't properly engaging. This video is going to show you guys how to replace your slave cylinder and how to install a steel braided line, and if it's worth it. Pretty obvious answer to that, but it's going to make a good video. I did not include the slave master cylinder. I replaced that previously, and it's pretty simple. It's just annoying to get to. The only annoying part of the master clutch cylinder is that you have to go under here with your head and try to undo a bolt. That's it. That's the hardest part of that install. Hope you guys enjoy the next part of the video, and I'll see you guys next time.
So tools are going to need a 10 and 12mm spanner, a ratchet with a 12mm on it and possibly extensions, something to suck the fluid out of the reservoir, and some hoses to actually bleed the system, and some brake fluid. Personally, I would pick .4 if you're going to put a braided steel line, but if you don't want to use .4, you can use .3. Personally, I would use .4 as a higher boiling point and is more of a performance oriented fluid, but if you guys do want to use .3, that is fine as well. Before you start, make sure to suck out as much fluid as you can from the actual master cylinder for the clutch. The last thing you want to do is undo the hard fitting at the slave cylinder and for fluid to just leak everywhere, and yeah. And make sure you put paper towels wherever you think fluid is going to drip out of. You do not want brake fluid on any part that has paint or anything like that, because it will strip it away. So to undo the slave cylinder is two 12mm bolts. So the top one you can do with a ratchet with an extension, which is pretty easy to reach, but the bottom one, it might be easier to actually reach it with a 12mm spanner. But yeah, it's not too hard to access. You can literally do this while the car's not jacked up or anything. Just reach in from behind the wheel and undo it. And make sure to push the piston out of the clutch fork. Make sure to loosen up all the hard fittings that you can with paper towels under them so you don't put brake fluid everywhere. And this is probably the most annoying part of the install of the steel braided line, is removing the reinforced rubber. Get off, you motherfucker. It uses like a metal clip to hold it in. It will take you a while to pull it out. The one behind the transmission is probably actually not the hardest one, as you can actually kind of leverage it out, but the one near your windshield wiper fluid is probably the hardest one to reach, as you need to go in between heater hoses to actually do it. Be persistent and you'll end up getting it off. And then you can undo the rest of the hard fitting if you haven't already at the top, at the actual master cylinder. Again, with paper towels under it. You want paper towels under every single thing that has got fluid dripping out of it. And then once you got it out, Just pull it out carefully and throw it on the ground. So this was the stock one, the pigtail, the hose going over the tranny, and the big hose going back around, versus that, which is directly to the master. Just reinstall it the same way you removed it. So with the braided steel line, it might be actually possible to gravity bleed. Although I would recommend having a second person as well to bleed the rest of the bubbles out. With this, so a hose and a bottle, put brake fluid in the master cylinder and pump the clutch like once or twice, just carefully while the bleed is open, and the fluid should just automatically start bleeding itself. Because with the straight line, there is no loops or anything for the air to go through. The air's already kind of escaping out of the master cylinder. And this is the time you'll take out any remnants of the old lines, and that's it. Make sure your clutch is all good and feels connected. Make sure the piston's moving back and forth properly. Do it with your phone camera or anything like that. Go for a drive and make sure everything's all good.
Definitely feels way better just shifting through gears. It's just like, it's so light now. Before you had to really like push it, but now you just push the clutch in, there's no resistance really. The clutch does feel heavier, but I've already gotten used to it. A lot of people neglect their transmission systems, diff systems, braking systems. These are maintenance items just like your engine is. And just as important, the safe cylinder was definitely worth replacing. It's like now, watch how easy it is. I've got to change gears with one finger, okay? That's how easy it is to change gears now. It's literally use one finger. Before you had to use your fucking whole hand. Another thing too, I feel like updating your lines to a hard, not a hard line, or if you can do a hard line, go for it. Updating your lines to a braided steel line is a good upgrade again. Especially if you've got a rubber clutch system, even parted rubber. That part rubber of it will lead to a lot of, loss of feel in the system, which is what you don't want. Even downshifting is way easier now too. So do I think it's a good upgrade? Yes. Safe cylinder has solved the issue that I was having with gear shifting, where the gear shifting was becoming heavier and heavier slowly, and also I was starting to miss shifts as well. And when I was missing a shift with the slave cylinder, it would actually grind a little bit. Not bad enough where the transmission was a write-off, but bad enough where if you kept doing it, you would eventually trash your gearbox, which luckily my gearbox is fine. Like even that, like I can glide the transmission around now. I wasn't even able to do that before, even if I tried. So yeah, definitely worth it to check your maintenance items, your transmission maintenance items, such as slave cylinder, master cylinder, your fluid, your lines. Maybe your lines are a bit, bloated or aging. Which introduces to my other good upgrade, which is the braided steel line. The braided steel line has taken a lot of fluid, excess fluid out of the system to do one function, has made it easier to bleed. You can actually gravity bleed the cylinder, which I half did, and it makes it way simpler to work on as well. Instead of worrying about which line, where, what connection, whatever. So yeah, it's made it a lot easier. And the feel, I'm not sure if it's the line because my slave cylinder was already going out, but the clutch just feels a lot more connected. And next upgrade is probably motor mounts, because the motor mounts is old, probably the original ones that came on the car, and I'm going to need newer ones. So yeah, see you guys next time.